Widen your champion pool is one of the best ways to improve in League. This video will give you tips and my personal method on how to do that. So let's learn how to master a new champion. Before we start playing, a smart thing to do is research and theory crafting. And no, I don't mean this kind of research. You know the saying, learn the rules before you break them. So instead of figuring out random builds and skill orders, just use what has already been found out. One thing I like to mention though is critical thinking, which is necessary when reviewing statistics. Since this topic is very dry, let's just go over an example of one of my favorite champs, so you know what I mean.
Precision is the difference between a butcher and a surgeon.
If we look her up on League of Graphs for my elo, it seems that Emax over maxing Q is generally the smarter idea, since it has a higher win rate. But at second glance, we notice that only 7.8% of the time it is picked, compared to 28.5% of the time on Qmax. This could be for different reasons. The point I'm trying to get across here is that numbers like these are indicators for niche cases, which means you need to adapt differently in every game. Same goes for builds. Now to the actual topic of this video. Learning to play our champ. What does being able to perform on a champion mean though? For me, that is excelling on two areas, being first, mechanics, and two, experience and knowledge. The definition of mechanics in League is different to most players. To me, it is the ability to execute your champion's strengths accordingly. Knowing that you would win an all-in is not the same as executing it properly. It doesn't matter if you know that your champion is a counter to the enemy laner or that you could win this teamfight, as long as you won't use your spells correctly, you will fail. So we could say that mechanics are the entry barrier of playing our champion, right? Hence the first thing we should do is to practice them. The sandbox tool is the perfect environment for our purpose. Since the laning phase is one of the more important ones in solo queue, we need to be able to CS correctly to succeed in it. CSing is something that you do subconsciously, so when you play with a new champion, you should try to get a feeling for that first. Practicing to last hit before playing is even more important if you are used to CS with, say, ranged mages, and then you want to learn a melee assassin, or you go from a high base AD champion to a low base AD one. In a custom game, you are entirely free from external pressure, and it's also a good practice to improve on CSing in general. Once you got that down, the next step is to learn how to clear waves efficiently, with and without items. It's just a small thing to do, but not having to think about how to clear waves as fast as you can, while you watch the minimap for example, is an immense help. After we got farming cemented into our brain, skill rotations and combos is the next thing on our list. If you want to learn a champ that has already been out for a while, there should be plenty of tutorials out there that teach you certain skill rotations. Same rule as in step 1 applies here. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. If the champion is new however, or you simply can't do anything with those tutorials, try out certain skill rotations versus dummies and bots. As always, every different scenario requires a different decision, or in this case another spell rotation. But having basic combos and possible scenarios in your head will make the upcoming step easier, which we will jump right into, gaining experience. Experience mostly comes with time, but a planned approach can help to reduce the time window needed to be able to use our champ efficiently. My personal method is the following. Every champion has sort of a maximum and minimum of what he can deliver to the game, or in other words, his limits. The goal is to find out what these limits are as fast as possible. I do that by alternating between an offensive and defensive approach. By playing extremely offensive, you'll quickly understand on how to acquire a lead and how to snowball with it. If you play extremely defensive, you will learn how to not give away a lead and what you can achieve in the game by simply being farmed, for example. The last remaining question would be now to ask yourself when to play offensive or defensive, and in my personal opinion, that's up to you. You can start every game by playing offensive and snowballing if it works, and when it backfires you start to play defensive from there on. Or you want to practice not to die in laning phase, so you play the whole phase defensive, but once you get into the mid game you play offensive again. Or you simply play the whole game defensive. The routine is up to you, and you should change it depending on your needs. The only important thing, however, is to always work towards a certain goal and keep that in mind. Whether it is team fighting, improving on your laning phase in certain matchups, or whatsoever. The only important rule we have to follow is to train one step at a time, to prevent confusion and be able to narrow down results. When it comes to improving in general, you can do it right and efficiently, or inefficiently and essentially wrong.
I must apologize for Wimp Low. He is an idiot. We have purposely trained him wrong, as a joke.
Review your mistakes and successes, as both will teach you the do's and don'ts of your champion. That's it for now, guys. As always, if you have questions or suggestions, feel free to comment. On was released a while ago, so be sure to subscribe to my channel, as I plan to release a guide where I will explicitly use my aforementioned method with him as an example. Oh, and by the way, I've set up a Twitch channel where you can see me streaming on a regular basis, so leave a follow if you want to see me try pop off, but fail hard instead because I just suck at this game. That was way too close.